it's me, Miss Westholm. Happy virtual reality week. Nope, this is reality, real reality. We're at home. It is 2:30 on a Wednesday for me. Anyways, I am going to read a little selection for you today. So this is from King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table. This was actually supposed to be in your first packet that you are now getting on April 13th, and it had to be taken out of the packet due to copyright laws. And then since that has happened, since the last 10 days have occurred, Penguin, and Puffin is part of Penguin, has relaxed their laws, and since this book was written in 1953, now I can give it to you, but since the packets were already printed, I can't, so I'm just going to read it to you anyways. First to start off with, I know you guys are worried about Miss Westholm and her mini Cokes. She has a big Coke now, and I have ice because I'm at my house, but just let me tell you, I'd rather be drinking a mini Coke with you. Okay, I also have my I Love Public Schools shirt on because it's Wednesday, and I wear one every Wednesday. Also, I made a cute sign. Do you like it? I hope so. I only want this video to be 10 minutes long, and it's already been a minute and a half. Okay, King Arthur, my favorite unit. Virtually. Let's hope that this works out. I haven't practiced since last year. Oh, The Coming of Arthur. Can you see that? That's Merlin carrying a baby away at night, and this is actually from a wood carving from the Howard Pyle edition. This one is by Roger Lancelyn Green, and this is the edition that you guys would have been reading if you were in school right now. Remember when I wanted you guys to take books home and they said you couldn't bring books home? Okay, this story is called The Two Swords, Chapter 1. After wicked King Vortigern had first invited the Saxons to settle in Britain and help him to fight the Picts and Scots, the land was never long at peace. Although so much of it was covered with thick forests, much also was beautiful open country, with little villages and towns, country houses and cottages, as the Romans had left it not many years before. Having once seen it, the Saxons could never again be contented with their savage, unfruitful homes in Germany and Denmark. No offense. And year by year, more and more of them came stealing across the North Sea in their long ships to kill or drive out the Britons and settle in their homes. Vortigern was dead, and Aurelius Ambrosius, last of the Romans, was dead too, when Uther Pendragon, whom some call the brother of Ambrosius, led the Britons. He defeated the Saxons in many battles and brought peace to the southern lands where he was king, to London and to Winchester, which was then called Camelot, and to Cornwall, where Gorlas, his loyal follower, was duke. But Uther fell in love with Gorlas's wife, the lovely Igraine, and there was a battle between them until Gorlas fell and Uther married his widow. Doesn't sound very chivalrous. He visited her first in the haunted house of Tintagel, the dark castle by the Cornish sea, and Merlin the enchanter watched over their love. One child was born to Uther and Igraine, but what became of that baby boy? Only the wise Merlin could have told. For he carried it away by a secret path down the cliffside in a dead of night, and no word was spoken of its fate. Uther had no other children, though Igraine and Gorlas had 3 daughters. 2 of these were grown up when Igraine became queen, and were married. Morgas to Lot, king of Orkney, and Elaine to Nontris, the king of Garlot. And they had 2 sons, who in the after days were among the bravest knights of the Round Table. But the 3rd daughter, Morgana Le Fay, was still only a child, and she was sent to school in a nunnery. I wonder why she ends up being upset she's sent away. Yet, by some means, she learned much magic, which she used wickedly. King Uther Pendragon had only a little while of happiness with the fair Igraine, for soon the Saxons made war against him once more, and sent a traitor to serve him, who poisoned the king and many of his followers. When the land fell upon days more evil and dreaded than any which had gone before, King Uther's knights fought amongst themselves, quarreling as to who should rule, and the Saxons, seeing that there was no strong man to lead the Britons against them, conquered more and more of Britain. Years of strife and misery went by until the appointed time was at hand. Then Merlin, the good enchanter, came out from the deep, mysterious valleys of North Wales, which in those days was called Gwynedd, through Powys or South Wales, and passed on his way to London. And so great was his fame that neither Saxon nor Briton dared molest him. Merlin came to London and spoke with the archbishop, and a great gathering of knights was called for Christmas Day, so great that all of them could not find a place in the abbey church, so that some were forced to gather in the churchyard. In the middle of the service there arose suddenly a murmur of wonder outside the abbey, for there was seen, though no man saw it come, a great square slab of marble stone in the churchyard, and on the stone an anvil of iron, and set point downwards a great shining sword of steel thrust deeply into the anvil. Stir not till the service is done, commanded the archbishop when this marvel was made known to him, but pray the more unto God that we may find a remedy for the sore wounds of our land. When the service was ended, the archbishop and the lords and knights who had been within the abbey came out to see the wonder of the sword. Round about the anvil they found letters of gold set in the great stone, and the letters read thus: Whoso pulleth out this sword from this stone and anvil is the true born king of all of Britain. When they saw this, many and many a man tried to pull out the sword, but not one of them could stir it a hair's breadth. He is not here, said the archbishop, but doubt not that God will send us our king. Let messengers be sent through all the land to tell what is written on the stone, and upon New Year's Day we will hold a great tournament, and see whether our king is amongst those who come to joust. Until then, I counsel that we appoint 10 knights to guard the stone, and set a rich pavilion over it. All this was done, and upon New Year's Day a great host of knights met together, but none as yet could draw forth the sword out of the stone. Then they went all a little way off and pitched tents and held a tournament or sham fight, trying their strength and skill at jousting with long lances of wood or fighting with broad swords. It happened that among those who came was the good knight Sir Ector and his son Kay, who had been made a knight not many months before, and with them came Arthur, Sir Kay's young brother, a youth of scarcely 16 years of age. Riding to the joust, Sir Kay found suddenly that he had left his sword in his lodgings, and he asked Arthur to ride back and fetch it for him. Is anyone familiar with this story now? Certainly I will, said Arthur, who was always ready to do anything for other people, and back he rode to the town. But Sir Kay's mother had locked the door and gone out to see the tournament, so that Arthur could not get into the lodgings at all. This troubled Arthur very much. My brother Kay must have a sword, he thought, as he rode slowly back. It will be a shame and a matter for unkind jests if so young a knight comes to the joust without a sword. But where can I find one? I know! I saw one sticking in an anvil in the churchyard. I'll fetch that one. It's doing no good there. Sir Arthur set spurs into his horse and came to the churchyard. Tying his horse to the stile, he ran to the tent which had been set over the stone and found that all 10 of the guardian knights had also gone to the tournament. Without stopping to read what was written on the stone, Arthur pulled out the sword at a touch, ran back to his horse, in a few minutes caught up with Sir Kay and handed it over to him. Arthur knew nothing of what the sword was, but Kay had already tried to pull it from the anvil, and saw at a glance that it was the same one. Instantly, he rode to his father, Sir Ector, and said, Sir, look, here is the sword out of the stone. So you see, I must be the true-born king of all of Britain. That sounds like lying. But Sir Ector knew better than to believe Sir Kay too readily. Instead, he rode back with him to the church, and there made him swear a solemn oath with his hands on the Bible to say truly how he came by the sword. My brother Arthur brought it to me, said Kay with a sigh. And how did you get that sword? Asked Ector. Sir, I will tell you, said Arthur, fearing that he had done wrong. Kay sent me to fetch the sword, but I could not come to it. Then I remembered having seen this sword sticking uselessly in the anvil in the churchyard. I thought it could be put to better use in my brother's hand, so I fetched it. Did you find no knights guarding the sword? Asked Sir Ector. Never a one, said Arthur. Well, put the sword back into the anvil, and let us see you draw it out, commanded Sir Ector. That's easily done, said Arthur, puzzled by all this trouble over a sword, and he set it back easily into the anvil. Then Sir Kay seized it by the hilt and pulled his hardest. But struggle and strain as he might, he could not move it by a hair's breadth. Notice that's a common phrase. Sir Ector tried also, but with no better success. Pull it out, he said to Arthur. And Arthur, more and more bewildered, put his hand to the hilt and drew forth the sword as if out of a well-greased scabbard. A scabbard is like the holder that the sword goes in. Now, said Sir Ector, kneeling before Arthur and bowing his head in reverence, I understand that you and none other are the true-born king of this land. Why? Oh, why is it I? Why do you kneel to me, my father? Cried Arthur. It is God's will that whoso might draw forth the sword out of the stone and out of the anvil is a true-born king of Britain, said Sir Ector. Moreover, though I love you well, you are no son of mine. For Merlin brought you to me when you were a small child and bade me bring you up as my own son. Ooh, secret revealed. Then, if I am indeed king, said Arthur, bowing his head over the cross hilt of the sword, I hereby pledge myself to the service of God and of my people, and the righting of wrongs, and to the driving out of evil, to the bringing of peace and plenty to my land. Good sir, you have been as a father to me since ever I can remember. Be still near me with a father's love and a father's counsel and advice. Kay, my foster brother, be you seneschal, I don't know if I said that right, over all my lands and a true knight of my court. I'm going to ask you a question about this whole interaction after this. Oh my gosh, Murray, 11 minutes and 30 seconds. After this, they went to the archbishop and told him all, but the knights and barons were filled with rage and jealousy and refused to believe that Arthur was a true-born king. So the choice was put off until Easter, and at Easter once more until Whitsun, or Pentecost, as it then was called. But still, though many kings and knights came to try their strength, Arthur alone could pull out the sword. Then all the people cried, Arthur! We will have Arthur. By God's will, he is our king. God save King Arthur. And they knelt down before him, the noble and the humble together, and the rich and the poor, and they cried him mercy for delaying them so long. Cried him mercy. And Arthur forgave them readily, and kneeling down himself, he gave the wondrous sword to the archbishop, and received of him the high and holy order of knighthood. And then came all the earls and barons, the knights and squires, and they did homage to Arthur, swearing to serve and obey him as was their duty. King Arthur now gathered together all the hosts of Britain, and with the pick of the older knights who had served his father and younger knights whose chief desire was to show their courage and loyalty, he set out to do battle with the Saxons and to punish all those thieves and robbers who had ravaged the land for many years, doing cruel and shameful deeds. Before long, he had brought peace and safety to the southern parts of Britain, making his capital at Camelot. But the other knights who ruled then in and about Britain, the king of Orkney and Lothian, of Gwynedd and Powys, of Gore and Gorloth, grew jealous of this unknown boy who was calling himself king of all Britain, and sent word that they were coming to visit him with gifts, but that their gifts would be given with sharp swords between the head and shoulders. Sounds a little bit like, something else we read. Caesar. Oh, yeah, that's what it was. Caesar salad. Then Merlin came suddenly to Arthur and led him to the city of Caerleon. I don't know if that's how you say that, but I really like to say it like that. In South Wales, into a strong tower well provisioned for a siege. The hostile kings came also to Caerleon and surrounded the tower, but they could not break in to kill Arthur and his faithful followers. Merlin came out of the tower after 15 days. I don't know the significance of that. I've looked it up and I don't know what it is. Stood upon the steps in the gateway and asked all the angry kings and knights why they came in arms against our King Arthur. Why have you made that boy, that Arthur, our king, they shouted. Be silent and listen, all of you, commanded Merlin. And a great quiet fell upon all who were gathered together, an awe and a wonder as the good enchanter spoke to them. This is the part that's a little... Well, that's all for today, folks. Stay tuned to tomorrow. Yeah, I can do another one by tomorrow. For the next exciting installment of King Arthur and the Two Swords.